What's going on, good people? Good people, wake up. Here we go. What's going on, Allie? Leap Churro, what's going on? The lovely Faith, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Wednesdays with Wes, of course, right? I'm your host, Donovan Hitchmaster West, and tonight, I'm really happy to talk to you guys. I hope you got my advertisement as for what to do this evening. I want to hear from you guys more than I normally ask to hear from you guys, but I really like to hear what some of your topics of discussion are so that we can have a good conversation about all things relationships. So it's been a week since I last saw you. Hope all is well. And you ready to rock out with me. What's going on, Nikia? I see you. Nikki baby, what's up? We're talking about all things relationships this evening, this Wednesday, with me, Donovan Hitchmaster West. As you already know, this is Wednesdays with West, and we talk about all things relationships. But I want to make sure at the end of the day, the conversations that we have are conversations that you want to have. So you already know. What's going on, Honesty? I see you. Thanks for joining us. You already know. This is not about me preaching to you about relationships or something that I had on my mind to talk with you guys about. Obviously, I can go in either direction where I can provide you something, a topic, a discussion, and then we can rock out that way. But more importantly, what I like to do is I like to hear from you. This helps me to keep my pulse on what's good, you know what I mean, and what you're interested in and what your concerns are, so that I can make sure that I tailor or customize the conversation to issues of your heart, not mine. Hope that makes sense. So this is Bring Your Own Topic, BYOT, tonight on this Wednesday with Wes. And I want to hear from you guys. So as I do my roll call, you already know. I'm asking you, Allie, Leap Cherry, what's going on, Cheryl? That is. Lovely Faith, Nikki Baby, Honesty, Miss Money Cakes, All Things to Merit On, Miss Jessie. I'm asking all you guys. I need y'all to give me the topic. Give me the topic of the discussion, okay? I want to hear from you. What are some of your thoughts? What are some of the things you want to discuss? Did the conversation kick off at the water cooler, in the conference room, at lunch, in your living room, at the gym, at the hair salon, at the barbershop? Was there a topic of discussion related to relationships that you want to bring up here? I'd like to engage you even more than I typically do so that we can talk about that. I just left from an amazing event that was held by Pico, and they had this thing called Leading Through Transformation, Then, Now, and in the Future. And shout out to my man, Kenny Gamble, man of Gamble and Huff. What an OG in the game, and he just really, just kind of gave a lot, some more nuggets about this life overall. An amazing guy. But so I rushed back from that. It was held at the African American Museum. It was a great event. And I just rushed back so that I can get back here in front of you guys so that we can have, BYOT here at Wednesdays with West. And that is Bring Your Own Topic today. So Dr. Price, thanks for joining us. All right. But as you already know, here at the Relationship Script, while it does have script in it, I don't provide scripts without first listening. All right. So I want to hear from you. What are some of the topics you have? It doesn't matter, by the way, what your status is. You could be single, separated, married, divorced, in between, celibate, out there, situationship. No judgment over here, all right? I just want to make sure that you feel comfortable and that you know that you're in a safe space. So there's no question that's a bad question, all right? Deal? I hope we got a deal. So as you already know, I do have some questions in here. This is my random and anonymous bag of questions, and these questions typically come from people that send a question in the DM, people that are a little too shy to ask the question in person, but nonetheless we make sure that we answer them as well. And some of those questions we answer directly to them in the DM, and then we keep the question here so that we can pose it to the crowd, right? So I'm pretty sure some of their questions are your questions, but There's no time like that go live time. So right now, what are some of your questions? What are some of the things that are in the realm of relationships that you want to talk about? I'm all ears. Don't be shy this Wednesday evening. You know, y'all know me better than that, and you guys aren't shy. So let's have it. What are some of your questions, your comments, concerns as it relates to relationships? I'm all ears. All right. You know, remember, this is bring your own topic. So I'd like to hear some of your topics of conversation you would like to have this evening. Let's go. You guys, okay. So Dr. Price says, what does it mean when wants to take it slow? When somebody wants to take it slow, what does it mean? It can mean a couple of things. When a guy, okay, so you're saying specifically when a guy wants to take it slow, it can mean a couple of things. Number one, it can mean that he's really in tune with where he's at, right? I don't know if you've heard me talk about this before, but I'll say it again. Often when you're coming out of a relationship, it is important that you slow down and that you don't jump into something else. This is very important because you need time to heal, to reflect, to get used to being by yourself. If you're not used to being by yourself, often what happens is you're looking to really link up with someone else, and you could be a serial monogamous or whatever, but the point of the matter is that, you know, that person may not be Mr. or Miss Right. They may be Mr. or Miss Right now, and you don't want to really find yourself into that space. So if somebody says, let's take it slow, what that may mean is that they may be in a space where they may not be totally available to go down this journey at this point, but they like you, they met you, and they're trying to negotiate that. What it could also mean is that their situation is complicated. What I mean by complicated is that perhaps they're not out of that relationship 100%, and they're not saying to you directly that they really want you to be in a friend zone for right now, because it might be messy if you're more than that at this particular time. So let's take it slow can mean a couple of things, right? One, maybe I didn't heal. Two, maybe I'm not totally out of another situation. If they're not totally out of that other situation, I still would caution you that you also give them more time. So even after the breakup is clean or whatever, they still need time to get to know themselves and to, make sure that this situation with you is not a rebound situation. So give them even some more time after that in terms of space and allow that situation to take place. The let's take it slow also could also mean that maybe they're not as hot and heavy into you as you are for them, and they may need some more time to kind of figure it out. So not all love is at first sight. So that doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing, but just something that you should also make sure you take heed. All right. So Cheryl says, have you covered relationships and joint business ventures? How much of a killer can that be? That's a great question. In a relationship, when you are looking to build on that in terms of actually create a business together, you got to really think about, how much you're able to actually endure one another. What I mean by that is that you're talking about long periods of time being together. And what can you really expect out of that? Number one, obviously you can expect a lot of pressure in terms of wearing a number of different hats. And you have to be up for that. What that means is that just because you're together all day doesn't mean that it qualifies as you spending quality time together. As a business, as a partnership, you guys are going to work together as partners. That's one hat. But as lovers, that's a different hat. And you have to carve out time for that. And then the other part, which is very important, which is carving out time to be apart from one another. So when you actually, take inventory as to who you are, who this other person is, and your personalities, then you really can take inventory from a perspective of, this is what counts towards the ability to make a partnership, a business partnership out of this, and this is what and this is what counts against it. The key thing to understand is that you have to have a contingency plan. What does that mean? That means potentially, just potentially, there's a chance that you may break up. And so, are you ready do you have enough of a friendship, of a respect for one another, that if that should take place, that the business doesn't also fall apart either. So keep that in mind. All right. Ali says, I'm finally at a point in my life. I understand why it's important to take it slow. It allows us to bow out gracefully if we need to. I agree. I mean, taking it slow allows you to make sure that you haven't signed on too soon, right, or prematurely into a situation that you're not 100%, you're not 100% certain about, and that's okay. Taking it slow allows you to demonstrate your muscles when it comes to discernment as well. So, there's nothing wrong with taking it slow. I often say if you're in that situation, you look at that person and say, what's the rush? And if you're being reasonable in terms of what does, when you say taking it slow, now we're not talking about years, but we are talking about you working through some feelings or some issues or concerns that you may have. And they don't necessarily have to be with that individual. It can be with you, in terms of things that you need to work on inside, right? Okay. So Ali says, I'm business partners with the guy that eats out of my plate. So you're still talking about the guy who has his chopsticks in your bowl, huh, Ali? I hear you. Well, again, that's one kind of relationship. But again, if there was an opportunity where you could actually build on a relationship, which means that not only are you working together, but outside of that, there's additional time, additional responsibilities, activities, things of that nature that you should expect to take place for that, so that your relationship can continue to grow in a healthy manner. So that's very important. So as you already know, or if you don't know, if you didn't see the small promotion for tonight, this is BYOT, which is Bring Your Own Topic. This evening with Wednesdays with Wes, we wanted to figure out, what some of the topics were that you wanted to discuss, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be a specific question, but if you wanted to bring up a particular topic that you would like me to provide some additional perspective on, I'm right here. I'm listening to you, all right? So, Jam Down Lady, thank you for joining us. Anyone else, if you have a question or a topic of discussion, I'm all ears. Cheryl says, has that guy become a work husband without the ceremony? It's interesting. A lot of times, hey, what Melon and Joy, a lot of times, the people at our workplace do become our workplace husband or workplace wife because of the amount of time that we spend together. However, I want to caution everyone to make sure that you establish what the boundaries are, because we all have different definitions of what that means. And sometimes I think Ali brought up the situation where her workmate, her workplace husband, put his chopsticks in her bowl when they were eating lunch together one time. And I'm going to go ahead and blow the whistle and say there's a foul on the play because he's crossing the boundaries. However, if you're not checking him, then he may decide that, he may figure out that's okay. And it may not be anything sexual about it. He just may be going just a little too far in terms of what his sense of family is or closeness is versus yours. So be careful, all right? Jackie, thanks for joining us. The lovely Faith says, when does a man know when he wants to be exclusive? I'm running into a lot of men who seem like they don't want exclusivity. When does a man know he wants to be exclusive? Well, there are two things about that. One, it's about him being in a season where he's ready to actually shut it down in terms of, just the dating part and really now narrow it down into, courting and courting with a purpose, as I call it. The other part is, of course, meeting a certain person. I do believe that a man, when he meets a certain person, may feel more inclined. Not to say that that's always the case, but I think men in many cases may meet someone and say, you know what, this is someone that I have, a lot of things in common with. I can see a future with, and maybe that may inspire him to some extent, or should I say, motivate him to some extent. But ultimately, the choice as to whether or not he actually goes down that route really means where he's at in his life, in his travel, in his journey. And if he's not in a space and place when he's ready to actually settle down, the idea of settling down, then more than likely what's going to happen is the person that he's dealing with in that space may be someone that may tempt him, but may not ultimately, get him into the mind frame where he's ready to commit. So you have to be careful about that when you're talking about, exclusivity. Again, how do you frame your interaction with him? Are you someone that's just getting to know him and is kind of light and lively, and then you say, hey, I'm interested in this? Or from the gate, are you having some dialogue like that, and that person engages with you and then at some point pulls back? So, there's some questions around how you're engaging him from the start. What's going on, babe? I see you. Your main attraction, Duchess, thank you. This evening we're talking about what you want to talk about. So this is BYOT, bring your own topic. So we're talking about the questions and topics of discussions that you bring up. I don't want to just give you a topic. I want you to bring it to me and let me know what some of your thoughts are, some of the concerns are, some topics you'd like us to discuss. Missy says, you think flirting with someone outside your relationship is okay? I think we all flirt. Let me just be honest with you straight up. We all flirt, first of all. So to what degree you flirt, and is that okay? That's an extremely subjective thing. I know I just said, but I think we all flirt. Whether it is, I don't know, whether it's the person washing your car, or you're at a store and you want to get a discount. You are, I don't know. I think you flirt on some level. Whether it is, you're at that networking event and there is someone that you find attractive, and you have no intention of exchanging phone numbers or anything, but you want to feel like that person is attracted to you as well. So you may flirt a little bit. Do I think that's wrong? Personally, I don't. I think at the end of the day, calling that wrong is to call the world flat. It's to like, you're shifting everything. I think everyone flirts on some level in some shape or form. But when you do it with an intent to actually, make it more than that, exchanging information, texting, calling, inboxing, DM, and all that good stuff. I think that's when you're crossing the line. But as for in your normal interactions, you have a conversation, and maybe you may make a comment about someone looking nice, or even exchanging a playful glance. I think that happens all the time, and I don't think there's anything really wrong with that. That's just me. All right. Jam Down Lady says, be a husband to more than one woman. That's polygamy, right? And can you do that? Is that something that I think is something that is permissible, or, it's out there. I think just recently there was an article about, I can't remember what state or whatever, but they were decriminalizing polygamy. And so, is that something that I think is right or wrong? I think ultimately polygamy is a state of mind. It's a belief system. And I don't have anything against that in terms of, people that are in a space that have a common understanding as to what the roles and responsibilities are. Polygamy is a very, very, very old institution, and many may think of it just purely as a sexual thing, and it's not. Polygamy first started off as actually a practice whereby, a man, which, by the way, still were minorities even back in the day, but men that were able to actually take care of multiple families. And so it was, marriage in that sense, to multiple women, whether they were called the wives or in certain instances they were concubines that then had children. This was really about the man's ability to take care of that village, so to speak. And so polygamy has been around for a very long time. And in many instances, it still functions under that capacity. It's not just about, a man having sex with a bunch of women. In many ways, it's about a social construct of a family. And that's an interpretation of it. So, I think a man having multiple wives may be interesting if it's just wives versus multiple families, which in most cases, I think it's just another example of a particular belief system. One that I don't necessarily, I'm not on board for. I don't want multiple wives, so I can't afford multiple wives. I don't think that if I could afford multiple wives, I would. I think that's just a lot. But to each your own. Queen, what's going on? Eliza, what's going on? I see you. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about you. We're talking about your topics of discussion. We're talking about your questions, things that maybe you had in your mind, or things that were discussed at the workplace, at home, with your girlfriends, with your boys, at the bar, the barbershop, the salon, wherever. Bring it up now so that we can talk about those things, all right? Flirting is a human nature. It's unconscious most times. Allie, nah, it ain't unconscious most times. That's BS. It's not. You know when you're flirting. I think if you're in tune, you know what you like, and you know what attracts you. And I don't think that, flirting is unconscious. I think parts of flirting can be unconscious, meaning that you may not know how much you're flirting. You may not know how much when you're talking to someone that you're smizing at them or whatever, or you are smiling and engaged or whatever. You may not know to what degree, but I think you know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, that's pretty interesting. But I think most people that are flirting, they know that they're flirting, and it's okay. I just think that you should have some boundaries, so to speak. So if you are in a relationship, if you're married and you're flirting to the extent where you're exchanging phone numbers or you're engaged in some kind of activity with someone else as a result of your flirting, then you're doing too much. But I think in a normal party environment, networking environment, where you may exchange a glance or interacting with somebody, I don't think that's a problem at all. I mean, I think it's very natural for you to want to feel desired, and or some people say, I want to know if I still got it. So I think that happens a lot more than we care to actually admit. And to say that it's wrong to do it outside of your relationship, okay, I hear you. Am I going to say that it's absolutely wrong? Nah, I'm not. You're not going to catch me saying that. So that's just my opinion. Lydia, thank you. Kenny, Curvy Kia, what up? The real sample size, I see you. So we're talking about all things relationships, and this is BYOT. Bring your own topic. What are some of the topics you have when it comes to relationships? Questions you have, or anything that you may have discussed earlier in this week, last week, or something that you may want my perspective on. I'm all ears, all right? If you're just now checking this out for the first time, this is called Wednesdays with Wes. I'm Donovan Hitchmaster West. I do an event called the Relationship Script, and we've been very fortunate to do it here in Philadelphia, also in DC, in Atlanta, Orlando. We're coming very soon to a spot near you. We're working out those details, okay? And in between events, what we want to do is get together on a Wednesday. So I figured I would do this, and I've done it several months now, and I'm glad to see you guys joining me this evening. So we're talking about all things relationships. What are some questions you have, some comments you have as it relates to relationships? Let's talk, all right? I'm all ears. Model Christina, what's going on? I see you. So what are some of the other topics of discussion that you guys have when it comes to relationships? What are some things that you've been debating with your significant other or your girlfriends or your boys? I'm all ears. I like to chime in on that. Daphne, thanks for joining us. I appreciate that. As you already know, I have this bag of random and anonymous questions. I can go in there as well, but I like to hear from my live audience often as I can. So if I don't hear anything in the next couple of seconds, I'll go to the bag, all right? Going once, going twice. Should I go to the bag? Who wants me to go to the bag? Just throw up a thumbs up or whatever. Or if you have a question, go ahead and post. Okay, the real sample size says, what are your thoughts on the modern day woman on not letting a man be a man? That's a very good question. So the modern day woman, or today's woman, not letting a man be a man, I think that's a very big problem. Obviously, number one, if she's conscious of that, then my question to her would be, what's her objective? If it's a matter of, sorry about that. If it's a matter of old habits or bad habits, in terms of things that you're typically doing because, you're used to being in control, you're used to taking charge, all that good stuff. I understand that. But the minute that you're aware of certain behaviors and how that may make a man feel or may not allow a man to play his part, function in the role that he's supposed to function in. I think that's a problem. But the other thing is also you should have a conversation with that man about the things that you enjoy doing, the things that you're used to doing and things that he's used to doing. It is important today, 2020, that we identify the fact that roles are able to be, I don't want to say swapped, but maybe modified, right? And at the end of the day, you really understand that who you are and who that person is really what makes up that relationship. So you don't have to go with the script, so to speak, in terms of what society says you're supposed to do as the man, what society says you're supposed to do as the woman. Because you do have some men that function in different spaces in a very adequate way. So, for you to say, oh, you know what, when it comes to nurturing and this and the other, maybe the man in that relationship is actually more of a nurturer than a woman in that situation. Not to say she shouldn't use certain muscles when it comes to nurturing. She shouldn't, move in that space, but maybe he's the lead in that particular area. Maybe she's the lead in terms of finances, in terms of, her financial literacy, her ability to make sure that the chart that's the chart for their future is actually been carved out from her perspective and her knowledge and skill base. It all depends on who's actually at the table. So be really careful about making sure that that you really even define what a man is and what a woman is in that relationship, and that is something that both people can agree on. If you don't have agreement, then you're going to have problems throughout the whole relationship until it eventually crumbles. All right. Daphne says a woman should always let a man be a man. True, but you got to be careful about defining what a man is. And you got to make sure that you're clear about that. Many times people say, well, everybody knows what a man is supposed to be. Not true. People grow up differently. And because they grow up differently, a man, an example of a man to someone who never had a father or never had uncles or other people around as an influence, he may come up with a version of what a man is based off of some other sources that he pulled from. And the same thing for a woman. Her influences could be something totally different than his, and they can walk into that relationship with two different perspectives as to each other's roles. All right, so be careful about that. Real sample size says, how do you make a man, let me see it. How do you make a man feel secure in a relationship when you are successful and secure? Meaning, have your own place, career, and luxuries in life. If you have to make a man feel secure, then there's a problem. Because if he needs to feel secure, that means he's insecure. And, to the extent that you're not being braggadocious, you're not, flaunting, but then I would say that if he's having issues around that, he's got to work on that. Real talk. If you are a person that's humble and you have these great things in your life, these great material things, that's great. And if his focus is so much on what you have in terms of materially, where it makes him feel insecure, maybe it's not a good fit. Maybe it really isn't a good fit. So you got to focus on the fact that, when you are this person that has a great career, earning good money, a house, car, all the luxuries in life, that's great. Are you showing it off? Is this just how you live? It's just who you are. And you feel that because you may be someone that's earning more than him, you have to be extra sensitive. You do need to be, I would say, not extra sensitive, but someone that's not coming off like you flirt, like you're flaunting it. I think that's the biggest issue. But other than that, if you're a person that's respects him for who he is and his character and all that good stuff, great. If you're judging him based off of the same material kind of metric system, then that's going to be a problem, obviously, because he's not going to be able to show up in the same way that you're showing up. And then now the material things you have are actually central as opposed to the content of your character, who you are, what you're bringing to the table, common beliefs, and all that other good stuff. All right? Thanks, Beautifully Divine, for joining us. Model Christina says, can a gal find a guy other than online these days? Seems like the only place they send a single girl, like they send a single girl like yourself is online. I'm assuming. So, yes, it is a. I got my motion censored. There you go. My motion censored light. Excuse me. So, yeah, you can, but it's up to you. I mean, men are everywhere, right? Men and women are everywhere. Different events, functions, and all that good stuff. So, it depends on how much time you have, right? The new school way, right? The most common way nowadays is growing, at least to be more common, is online. But feel free to do old school, right? Go to an event. Go to lounges, parties, places that you enjoy going to. It doesn't matter, the key thing is that you go and do things that you enjoy doing. And I'm pretty sure that there are men there. Now, I do understand that there seems to be a shortage at times, but it depends on what your standards are. If you're looking only for men that are earning a certain amount, if you're looking for men that are white collar versus blue collar, if you're looking for men that say don't have any children at all, if you're looking for men who are within or just African American men versus African Caribbean men or Hispanic men or Asian men, whatever. So how wide you can cast your net also plays a key role in terms of how hard your search is going to be. But you absolutely can find people to interact with, to date. In every space that you're in, it's about you being more open to it. And while the most convenient way seems to be the swipe left, swipe right technology, it's not the only way. Jackie says, everyone has different ideas on what the role of a man or woman is supposed to be. We just have to find someone whose definitions are compatible with yours. I agree. Compatible is key. All right? Not identical, but compatible, okay? Very key that we talk about make sure that we know the difference between the two. Compatible means that, it's within the proximity, right? You can still connect and not exact, because more than likely it's not going to be exact. But that's why these conversations are very important. Okay? She Cooks, thanks for joining us. I appreciate that. All right. Real sample size talking about Christina Run. Most of them is married. You got to make sure that you pay attention to everybody in every space. It doesn't matter, whether you're talking about online or in line at a store or a restaurant. It doesn't matter. Whoever you meet, wherever you run into them, you got to be aware of the mask that people wear. Right? Ready for a relationship? Thanks for joining us. I appreciate that. All right, so I hear you model, Christina, you're talking about you don't get out much, but the point of the matter is that, you have to make some sacrifices if you want to diversify how it is that you do meet someone. It can't always be, online, but sometimes you can mix it up with something in person. And also not being afraid to shoot your shot. I know some people have some opinions on that in terms of, I think the man should always shoot the shot, should always approach. But, again, I think in 2020, you can't always guarantee that. And just because you may have approached someone or at least flirted with them or gave them some impression that it's okay for you guys to have a conversation, it doesn't mean that all is lost. And it doesn't mean that he wasn't interested. It just means at the end of the day that sometimes how we position ourselves, our body language, the environment that we're in, sometimes those things can also deter a man from approaching. And there's nothing wrong with making someone aware that you're actually interested in doing more than exchanging a glance. All right. You said that meme that says single girls want a guy to knock on the door is so real. That's hilarious. Flirting with the answer, it works universally. Talk about that. What do you want to talk about? So I'm listening. We'll talk about what is in particular, Model Christina. I'm listening. Nikki Bagby, what's going on? I see you. So we're talking about anything you guys want to talk about, right? Is bring your own topic tonight. at Wednesdays with Wes, and I'd love to hear more about some of the topics to discussion that you guys want to bring to the table. As you already know, I got my bag of random and anonymous. If you want me to go ahead and go in this random and anonymous bag, I can. Put your thumbs up if you want me to do that. If you have a question that you'd rather ask, I'm all ears, right? Because it's all about you. We want to make sure that we answer the questions that you have as opposed to just going in the bag and answering those questions. There's nothing wrong with those questions, but I'd like to hear from my live audience first. So what are some of the questions that you guys have? He said, talk about how to reach out to a person you are interested in. All right, so there's a number of ways you can reach out to a person you're interested in, right? Obviously, right now we're on Instagram. So clearly, you see someone, you check out their page, and you like not just what they look like, but maybe the things that they post about or things that you also have in common. Yes, you can slide in the DM and just keep it tasteful. Ask that person if they're single and if they would be interested in grabbing a cup of coffee or whatever. If they're local, right? If they're not local, then perhaps just asking permission to have some more dialogue with them, especially if they're not too far off, or if you're open to something that's long distance. But that's one way to do it in an online space. In person, it's about making sure that you create the kind of environment where you can have some conversation. I can't stress this enough. Often in these networking environments, especially when I say, women of color, that body language is very important. You got to make sure that someone knows beyond you just being cordial that you're actually interested in them. So if you're not into walking over to somebody or gesturing for you and that person to have some more conversation, at the very least, you got to make sure that your body language does show that you're open to it, which means great eye contact, lots of smiling. If you are engaged in a conversation, maybe a gentle touch of the shoulder or the back or something, as you're laughing, touching, interacting with them. It doesn't have to be anything seriously sexual about it at all. It's just letting that person know that, that you are engaged in the conversation, you are interested in them. And then, encourage that person to actually be more forward with you or reciprocate the energy so that you can be able to, move forward. So that's really what it's all about. It's about really being able to take full advantage, be present in that moment, right? To engage with someone. So for those of you out there that are like, I don't want to do this online thing. I don't want to do anything on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. You don't have to. But you do need to make sure that you step out and that you put something on your social calendar so that it puts you in a space and place where you're able to interact with people and do it that way. But you need to definitely make sure that you put the energy out. I'm going to say it one more time, or maybe three. Energy, energy, energy. Energy is key. If your energy is off, if you're expecting everyone to come to you, if your face looks like your security, if your body language shows that you're giving too much shoulder and you're not really, if your hands aren't open, or if you don't seem open to interaction, if your eyes are straight as you're looking at them like it's a tough exam, as opposed to being a little bit more open and pleasant as you look at them, if you're not smiling enough, if you're not responding and having more than 2-word responses, if you're looking at your phone too much, these are all things that, at the end of the day, you got to cut it out. You got to make sure that if you're engaged in the conversation, be engaged in the conversation. Be engaged in that person. Get their attention. It's okay for you to actually say something to that person as well, right? So those are some of the things you should really think about. All right. Albany, what up? Curry Dre, what's going on? D-Real, what up? I see you. So, Daphne says, I don't think that men should approach the woman. I don't mind a little flirting, but I prefer a man finding me. So you say you don't think women then should be approaching. You said something. I do think man should approach women. Okay, I got you. Okay, that's your opinion. But I don't think it's the only way that you're actually going to connect. So flirting is good, great. But again, I don't think there's anything wrong for women out there that are interested in someone, showing that you're interested. And to some extent, it doesn't mean that you are throwing the panties at them. Not at all. You can just say, hey, I'd like to get to know you better. I'd like to grab some coffee. Something simple, something light. It's just you taking control of a certain moment, because at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that that guy is in that same space either. He actually could be there just networking and see you and think you're attractive, but really believe at the end of the day that if he came across as someone that was interested in you, that he would get shot down. And some of you may say, well, then he's not enough of a man. He could just be someone that's just, thinking through and saying, you know what, this may not be the time and space. Perhaps that's not the case. But again, for you, you got to do what works for you. And at the end of the day, if you realize it's not working for you, you got to be willing to make some adjustments. That's all I'm saying. Keep an open mind. All right. So Daphne says, how can you make sure flirting is meaning interested? Rejection is not cool. So rejection isn't cool, but that's the thing we got to go through. We have to understand that if someone does reject you, if they're not interested in you, it's okay. You're not going to die. It just wasn't a connection. Happens all the time. You're getting rejected all the time as if someone goes onto your page and decides, never mind, I won't say anything to her. That's rejection. But you just don't experience it directly. By way of you saying, hey, I flirted with someone, or I shot my shot, I went to shoot my shot and that person didn't respond the way that I wanted them to, it's okay. Just because you're attracted to someone doesn't mean that you're going to be able to attract them, right? It's all right. It's just a way of life. It doesn't mean that you should stop and shut it down. Not at all. Maybe look at perhaps the way that you did it. Sometimes that can be the issue. But most times at the end of the day, someone that's not responding to you is going to be because, you're just not their flavor. But there are so many more fish in the sea, and you should keep that at the front of your mind, all right? Daphne says, be soft, be a woman. Is it possible to effectively show energy online? Yeah, it is. Absolutely. We're online now. Can you get a good amount of energy? Absolutely. You can be online with somebody, by way of the questions you ask also when you're texting someone. That can show good energy in terms of how promptly you are responding to their text, how you describe certain things that, when you're talking, the level of detail. If your responses are short, maybe it's not a lot of energy. You're giving the impression when you do 1 and 2 word responses, it shows that you're preoccupied or you're really not that interested. So by way of you being more detailed and responsive, you show that you are bringing a certain kind of energy. So yes, you can show energy online, okay? So Model Christina says, I want to be bolder this year. I really do, but I feel I need a lesson. That's not a problem. We can talk offline about being more bolder or things of the nature. But the reality is you already have what it takes. And that we all of us, by the way, we shouldn't take ourselves so seriously. So when you're able to do that, then you're in a better space. You can't sometimes you get caught up in, things as if they're so, they're so serious and so you're in this dire situation, and that's not the case. You like someone, you said you like them, or you showed them you like them, and it didn't work out. Okay, on to the next one. Not a big deal. Easier said than done for me. I'm not a person that does a whole lot of that, so I get it in terms of, pump faking when it comes to actually approaching someone. But at the end of the day, it's really not. It's not the end of the world. So being bolder, showing someone that you are interested, I think it's very important that you do that, because you don't necessarily, it's not guaranteed that you're going to run into that person again. So think about it that way. It's not, these are not like those rom-coms, right? Where you see someone that you're interested in and you didn't say anything, or maybe you exchanged glances and then you saw them later again at a common friend's house party, and then you strike up a conversation. That doesn't always happen, okay? It may have happened before, but, as a rule of thumb, that's not going to always happen. So sometimes you may just need to go ahead and be more aggressive in that moment, because you don't know when the next moment is going to present itself, or if it's going to present itself, all right? Ali says, I'm an introvert by nature, Christina, but I have gone rogue. I'll teach. I'll teach. Find me on IG. You're hilarious, Ali. That's what's up. It's good to know. Like, if you are an introvert, I understand. It's terrifying to think about, the idea of approaching someone. But baby steps. I'm not. You don't have to be someone that is got all these smooth lines and you're doing this and the other. No. Remember that you're a person, reaching out, interacting with another person. And, this is not a pageant. You're not supposed to be perfect. It's just about being able to express yourself, express your interest, and just do it from a way, from a space where it can be authentic, or as authentic as you can muster the energy to be. All right. Levon, thanks for joining us. Ms. Good Thing, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate that. All right. So we're talking about relationships, all things relationships. As you already know, this is BYOT, Bring Your Own Topic. And I'm your host, Donovan Hitchmaster West. We do this thing called Wednesdays with West. And I love talking to you guys about the questions that you have or topics of discussion that you like to bring up, because that makes it that much more relevant. And sometimes you can be talking about something, and if it's not really something in your wheelhouse, something on your radar, something that you're interested in, well, you go ahead and you go back onto the regular gram, or you go check out somebody else's live. But I do my best to make sure that what we talk about are things that are of interest to you. So if you have any more questions, if you have any more comments, things about anything under the sun as it relates to relationships, I'm all ears. I love to provide some additional perspective on that. And as you already know, if for whatever reason the question that you have is something that you would like to be answered privately, go ahead and shoot me a message in the DM, and I'll get back to you with my thoughts on whatever your the topic of discussion is. All right? Okay? Yeah? All right. So moving right along, are there any other questions that you guys have as it relates to relationships, or any of the questions that I answered earlier that you want me to go deeper on? I'm all ears. All right? Should you flirt with your SO? What's your SO? Is that your significant other? If you should flirt with your significant other, if that's the interpretation for SO, the answer is yes. I think you should absolutely flirt with your significant other. I think it's important that you let them know that you're still hot for them, that you still think they're interesting, exciting, sexy, attractive, beautiful, smart, whatever it is. You flirt with them, whatever does it for you, you should absolutely let them know that there's still something there between you, and not to get into the humdrum kind of routine of your relationship. While many things may be routine, and many things may be, predictable, flirting allows you to actually add another layer of intrigue, of intimacy to your relationship. So absolutely. All right. How do people who talk online confirm attraction or interest? Confirm attraction or interest? Well, using your words. I mean, obviously you see someone online, you see 1,000 pictures of them, you check them out, you think they're attractive from that perspective, right? Then you hopefully are able to get them on the phone. And through that, you should be able to express, whether or not you really have an interest. If there's a conversation, if you're able to have some good conversation about things that are important to yourself and learn from the other person. I think that's important. Today online, it's so easy to find someone that is attractive, but what else, right? What else creates another dimension to your interest? I hope that it's got more dimensions, or your interest has more dimensions than just someone's physical, their presentation. So by way of having that conversation and then expressing and say, hey, you know what? I actually like you. Like I like what I see and I like what I hear. I think that's important that you can do that. So you should talk. You should get away from just pure text and get into having some conversation and see how that conversation flows, because, attraction is attraction. That's great, but it's not everything. All right. Physical attraction, that is. Building relationships, friendships is really hard because of fear of failure. Well, again, fear, right? Fear will destroy many things. Fear destroys how you communicate, how transparent we are, how vulnerable we are when we are expressing ourselves. So fear will destroy all aspects of friendships, relationships, because often we're too caught up on how to maintain the representative that we place in front of our friends, or potential significant other. So that's very important that we understand that fear really has no place when it comes to really developing an intimate relationship on any level, whether it's on a friendship level, platonic, or an intimate level with your significant other. So you got to be very careful to acknowledge that you do have a level of fear and test the waters, by way of letting that person that you're talking to know that, you really want to be in a safe space where you can have some more intimate conversation and share more about yourself. And if you can't, then that means you really can't develop a strong friendship or relationship overall. And that's basically where that's the last barrier. Fear of acceptance, fear of rejection, fear of failure. All those things will really kill your relationship. They are very toxic. Based on past experiences, you don't want to go back to the past. True, that is very true. But at the end of the day, if you go back to the past in order to learn from it, so that you can turn it into a lesson, so that your future is more bright, absolutely, you should go back to the past. But the reality is that we typically just want to move forward without looking back. And that's problematic. You definitely want to make sure that you look back so that you can learn from your past and make sure you don't repeat your past, right? Thanks, Dr. Overton, for joining us. Daphne says, building a friendship, even online, is the key. Absolutely. There's a show out there. It's called Love at First Sight or Blind Date or something like that. I think it's Blind Date. And the first part of it, I think, is pretty cool, where you have these people that are dating each other, but they never get to meet each other. They talk through like a screen that basically you can't see anything, and they're instructed not to describe themselves, at least with too much detail. But they get to know each other over a certain period of time, not a long period of time, but after that certain period of time, then they have to commit to one another. I think that's pretty novel in the sense that we're all so much driven to what's on the outside that we really don't take as much time to really, build on what you have in common, in personalities, what your common faith may be, or belief system, or, how you see yourselves 3 years from now, 5 years from now, what does success really mean to you, and all those other great things. I think we don't really take as much time to do that kind of inventory. And so, while you are online, that's great. And more than likely you saw that person and you're in love with how they look and how they move or whatever. But take more time to take inventory of that person on the inside and whether or not that's really compatible with what you got going on. I think that's really what's key. Love times 3 and Father Drew, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate that. So the key thing here that we're talking about is just, what are all the things that you need to do in a certain space when you're talking about relationships, and I'm getting a lot of great questions from you guys on this BYOT edition of Wednesdays with Wes. BYOT stands for Bring Your Own Topic, right? So Jam Down Lady says, so do you think a person should lie to spare their partner's feelings? No, I think again, there's ways that you communicate the truth. And I think that's very important. I don't mean like white lies and things of that nature, but the reality is the more open you can be with your partner, the better it is for you. If your partner is someone that is not emotionally, sturdy, strong, someone that is insecure, someone that is maybe volatile, and these are characteristics that perhaps you should really take inventory of in terms of why you need to leave. But I think that if you can be tactful about 90% of the things that you got going on, I think you'll be fine. Are people insecure? Absolutely. Have people been burnt in the past from past relationships and haven't healed? Absolutely. Should you, lie or keep a bunch of lies in order to keep the peace? In most cases, I'm going to say no. There are certain things I would say that are, a distraction, but I'm going to say pretty much across the board, the more that you have a friend in your mate, the better the better you are going to be at actually giving them the truth. See, when you're friends, that means that they've seen you as being human, as being, flawed. They see your dents. They see that you can make a mistake. And so when you're in that space with someone like that, then that's the best place to be. When you have the hat on as being a significant other and you're just perfect and you're always doing the right thing, then now you're on a pedestal that's very hard to come down from. So in order to keep that image, what you'll typically do is you'll lie. You'll omit certain things. And that's really a place that you don't want to be, because this is someone that when you go home or when you're with that person, you want to be able to take off the armor. But the more that you have in the way of lies, the more that armor has to stay on, because you can't truly be yourself. So whether it's taking off your mask, taking off your armor, the reality is your significant other is supposed to provide you a space where there's no judgment, or at least very little, right? And the opportunity for you to take off your mask, to take off your armor, so that you can be renewed, rejuvenated when you're in that person's space. And if you can't do it there, then that means you have no room to breathe. You have no room, you have no refuge, you have no place where you can actually rest. And that's very problematic, because that means emotionally, spiritually, you're suffering, you're suffocating. And if you're in that space, then by the way, what are you there for? What are you there for? So I would say to everybody, as I come down to the last couple of moments of this edition of Wednesdays with Wes, do everything you can to develop the friendship in your relationships that you're in. And by way of doing that, then they'll be able to see you as this person that is human, that's flawed, that can make mistakes. They should see your dents, your bruises, your blemishes. They should see that. And so when you do make a mistake, or if there's something that you think that they're not going to digest, well, then now you have to turn the tables back on them and say, well, why do we have this relationship where I can't communicate with you? And you have to work through that. So whether you're seeing someone like a coach or a counselor, a therapist about that, or you're doing something else in terms of how you guys are working through that process of trust, of building your relationship and the trust within each other, then you definitely are going to be what I would call in dead water. So make sure that you're investing in the friendship of your relationship, so that you can talk more and you can relate more to one another, and so that you can be that safe space that your significant other needs you to be. And if you're a person that's single and you are, as you look forward to develop relationships, please do the same thing. Make sure that you cultivate, that you forge the kind of environment where you guys can have that kind of discussion. That's why friendship is so key in the early stages of a relationship, because they get an opportunity to see you as human. All right? And when you're human, we all know, all of us, you, all, everybody here, y'all all lie. So, and what we want to do is we want to reduce that by way of engaging in conversations that are more transparent, that show our flawed side. Anyway, as you already know, it's the end of a great episode of Bring Your Own Topic here at the Relationship Scripts Wednesday with Wes. I'm your host, Donovan West. I need you to just forward. All right, share with somebody. Tell someone that you care about them. Let them know that they matter. You never know what that couple of seconds you're about to invest in someone else is going to do for them. This is Donovan Hitchmaster West. It's been a pleasure serving you. I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday at Wednesdays with Wes. Tell a friend. Peace.